one very important aspect of the attack that the Israelis have carried out is also the qualitative change in the nature of the target that they've chosen. Because remember, in the first part of the attacks that the Israelis carried out, they predominantly focused on Iran's nuclear facilities, and in the decapitation attacks, they focused on taking out the top Iranian military leadership. But now the nature of attacks is also changing. Israel has reportedly also started to attack Iran's oil and gas industry. This is where it is trying to cut down Iran's economic muscle in many ways. Iran already, remember, is a very sanctioned nation where under Donald Trump's policy of maximum pressure, Iran's oil and gas industry is very heavily sanctioned, and there are very few avenues where Iran is able to sell its oil and gas products that it produces. And now the Israelis attacking Iran's oil and gas industry quite clearly shows that all gloves are off, and one can expect more attacks on critical infrastructure. Because once the oil and gas industry comes under attack, it's going to be very interesting to see as to what impact this has on the price of crude oil, and by virtue of that, on the global economy, and as to how the Iranians, of course, will respond to the Israelis now expanding their attacks to include Iran's oil and gas industry. Now, remember, this is the third straight night of attacks by the Israelis. The first night they carried out the attacks, which was the beginning of Operation Rising Lion, a term with clear biblical connotations, which was unleashed by the Israelis. There was a lot of infrastructure of the Iranians that was struck. The Iranian strategy has, of course, been to utilize their ballistic missiles to hit back at the Israelis. This is what the Iranians hoped would have created enough deterrence, where the Iranians, because of the quality of the ballistic missiles that they've got, have been able to pierce the Israeli Iron Dome, the much touted Iron Dome, and the many layers of the Israeli air defense systems. The Americans have also been helping the Israelis in shooting down some of these Iranian drones and missiles. This is the third day of the hostilities that's currently underway, the third straight night where the Israelis have staged attacks on Iran and its underground missile facilities. This is going to be a critical moment for Iran to make an assessment. If it fires its ballistic missiles that it has in its arsenal, then it has a chance of inflicting damage on the Israelis, their military infrastructure, possibly at Israel's critical infrastructure. But if Iran decides to hold back at this moment, if Iran chooses to get lulled into a sense of complacency, if that is what the military leadership there chooses to do, then possibly a lot of the military hardware that it is sitting on could get destroyed by the Israelis in the very bunkers where these missiles are stored. It's going to be very interesting to see as to how this plays out, but this is clearly a critical moment. The Israeli Prime Minister, when he spoke a little while back, spelt out what his strategy is. The Israelis are not going to hold back. The talks, the negotiations that the Americans were holding with the Iranians, it clearly has emerged, were not being done in good faith. And it now remains to be seen as to how the Iranian leadership, of course, responds to this. We are tracking all the developments that are unfolding. This is the latest bit of information that has come in, where the air defenses have been activated by the Iranians in Tehran and in 6 other provinces. Khorramabad, which is a key facility which contains the surface-to-surface missiles. These, remember, are the heavier missiles which carry much bigger payload and can have an enormous amount of impact when they actually strike their targets on the ground. This is one of those facilities which the Israelis claim they've struck in western Iran. So this is a war that's just in the initial phase of how it is unfolding at this moment. And my colleague Molly Gambhir is, of course, still with us. Molly, looking at the way that things are, in fact, playing out, when we heard that message by the Israeli Prime Minister a little while back, he wished Donald Trump a happy birthday and also went on to reiterate as to how Donald Trump is a man with a very clear vision and he spelled it out. He let the cat out of the bag when he said that the Americans were perfectly in the know when the Israelis started off with their Operation Rising Lion.
Absolutely, Saleh. Look at the messaging and the way it has emerged since Friday. And, you know, we've been talking to experts who've been also dissecting for us what the two sides are really trying to do at this point, both through what they're doing on the ground, of course, but also through the kind of statements that have been coming out. Both high on rhetoric, but also a lot of intent being on display on part of both sides. And the message that they are sending out loud and clear is that they are not backing down. And given the way things are happening on the periphery,
Just interrupt you there.